So unemployment. So yeah, terms. Labor force are people at least 16 years old who are working or actively seeking work. So that's the labor force. Unemployment is the percentage of the labor force out of work but actively seeking employment. So it doesn't include people that have given up. So anyone who has given up looking for a job, they're not included in unemployment. They're considered discouraged workers. So you have to be actively seeking work to be considered unemployed in this case. That's why the unemployment rate is flawed, because it doesn't include everybody. That's one of the main criticisms of the unemployment rate. It doesn't include people who have given up looking for work. While the labor force participation rate is more of a better estimate of unemployment because it includes everyone, even people who have given up. So if you can see, like if you look at the data for Canada and the US, the unemployment rate may go down, but the labor force unemployment, the labor force participation rate is going down, which is showing that more people are giving up looking for work. So the labor force participation rate, if it goes up, that's a good sign. But if it goes down, that's a bad sign. So we want, for the economy to do well, we want the labor force participation rate to go up. And that's what we should be focusing on. That's the most important measure of how the economy is doing in terms of employment, is labor force participation. We want it to go up. And when the labor force participation rate goes down, that's not a good sign. So full employment is 94 to 96% or more of the labor force employed. Unemployment is 4 to 6% or lower. Underemployment is when people are employed below their skill level. So that means that if a doctor is working as an entry level person in a job, that would be underemployment. So not working in the field that they're skilled for. 4 types of unemployment include frictional, seasonal, structural, and cyclical. So when we accept an unemployment rate of 4 to 6% as full employment. So that's when they say full employment, that means that that's the level of employment at when the economy is at its peak growth. So when the economy is at its highest growth rate, that's full employment. So not everybody's employed, but that's the lowest rate of unemployment that we can have. So in other words, we will always have a rate of unemployment that is an acceptable number. So the types of unemployment. So frictional is between jobs, so temporary considered normal, leaving a job to look for a better one. So for example, if you wanted to get a better job and you left your current job to get a better job, that's frictional unemployment. Seasonal unemployment is job loss caused by weather change or annual patterns or change of seasons. So yeah, landscaping jobs would be part of that, lifeguards, etc. Structural, worker skills do not match the jobs available in the economy. Workers must retrain and learn a new skill. Structural unemployment is really based on technological advances. So maybe if there are automated cashiers lose their job. So causes of structural unemployment: new technology must learn, discovery of new resources can replace the old resources industries, change in consumer demand, taste change, globalization, jobs may be relocated in another country, lack of education. Some people do not have the minimum education or training needed for the jobs today. Cyclical are jobs gained and lost in connection with the normal business cycle during recession/contraction. Jobs are lost during expansion. So during recession, jobs are lost. So when the economy is shrinking, you lose jobs in the economy. During expansion, when the economy is growing, jobs are regained. So this is the most serious type of unemployment because it's the most impactful. There's always going to be frictional, structural, and seasonal unemployment. So in any economy, if it's a good economy, bad economy, there's always going to be frictional, there's always going to be structural, there's always going to be seasonal unemployment. But with cyclical, that depends on if it's in a recession or expansion. So cyclical changes depending on if we're in expansion or recession. But we'll always have seasonal, frictional, and structural regardless. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics measures unemployment monthly. They send out 60,000 surveys to households across the country each month and calculates unemployment from these responses. So they don't count people under 16 years old, people not looking for work, and people in the military. So unemployment rate is calculated as number of unemployed divided by number of people in the workforce times 100. Problems with measuring unemployment include part-time workers count as employed, discouraged workers are not counted. So part-time workers counted as employed, and that's an issue because they may want full-time employment. They may be looking for full-time employment and can't find it, and they're stuck doing part-time, and they're still considered as the same employed as a full-time worker. So that's a criticism of that because they might be underemployed because they want to get a full-time job. So they don't take that into account. That's the big issue, is that they don't adjust for people that want to get a full-time job. Discouraged workers aren't counted, so people who have given up looking for work aren't counted, which is a big problem because we need to count them to ensure that there's representation. People underemployed aren't counted, aren't adjusted for that. So if someone's working a job that they're not trained for, there's not an adjustment for that. Hidden employment, people lie to the government. So people lie to the government about their jobs. What can happen when unemployment is very low? Companies can have trouble finding workers. So when the unemployment rate is very low, there might not be enough workers to hire because they're all working. So that becomes a problem for companies. So misery index or discomfort index is the sum of unemployment rate plus inflation rate. Usually the unemployment rate has a more significant impact on people's misery. Inflation isn't as harmful as unemployment. If the misery index is high, we can assume unemployment is high. Studies have shown a direct link to a high misery index and the crime rate. So if we have a high misery index, which is unemployment rate plus inflation rate, that's going to have a very high correlation with the higher crime rate. So we want the inflation rate to be low and the unemployment rate to be low to keep the society civil without much crime. Cost of unemployment. So cost of economic instability, economic costs, lost productivity, GDP gap, misery index, higher unemployment and or inflation, higher need for entitlements, transfer payments, less tax money, lower standard of living, social costs, wasted resources, higher crime rates, personal and family problems, psychology of defeat, example, depression, abuse, political instability, vote out, incumbent. So the time which leads to devaluation of money and its purchasing power. So examples of inflation, 1986, Big Mac, to 2012 Big Mac. So $1 in 1986 would buy 62% of a Big Mac, while in 2012, $1 buys 23% of a Big Mac. So the Big Mac has increased by 3 times in price during that period. So actually more than that here. So here in 1967, when McDonald's launched Big Mac in the US, it only cost $0.45. However, today a Big Mac costs $3.99. Now it's more than $5. Cause of inflation, demand side reasons, increase in the money supply, increase in household income, deficit in government budget spending, results due to foreign exchange reserves, supply side reasons, agricultural growth, significant industry growth rates. So it's negative circle here. So definitely high level of uncontrolled inflation is bad. It causes lots of uncertainties. So the circle here, people start to save when uncertain, spending starts to fall, businesses start to cut costs, economy shrinks, people lose jobs, cause more uncertainty, price falling further causes deflation. So it's a negative circle here. So consequences of inflation, a fall in real income. If the rise in the wage is smaller than the inflation rate, rising costs for firms, lower business competitiveness, and higher uncertainty that impedes potential investments. So how to measure inflation? So consumer price index. So current period price of the basket divided by base period of the basket times 100. So that's how they calculate it. They take they take a basket of goods. So for example, they could take a basket of food, education, and clothes. So they could see the rise in food prices, education prices, and clothes prices here. So as you can see here, food prices rise from 52 to 55 from 1998 to 2008. Education fell 80-65 during this period. Clothes rose from 20 to 22 during this period. And these are the weights. So I'll show you how they calculate the weights here. So you would weight all these together. So 0.45 times 52 plus 0.25 times 80 plus 0.3 times 20, you get 4940 for 1998. Then 2008, you do 0.45 times 55 plus 0.25 times 65 plus 0.3 times 22, and you get 4760. So then you could see that if you did 4760 divided by 4940 times 100, you get 9636. So CPI in 2008 is 9636 as compared to 100 in 1998. This tells us that there's no deterioration in the purchasing power of the people here. So as you can see here, this is how you calculate it. You use the baskets here. So the food prices, 1998, food, education prices, and clothes prices, 1998, and then 2008, you get food, education, clothes prices, 2008, and you weight them all. And yeah, so you weight all of those based on the education, food, and clothes weights, and then you figure out if the prices have risen or fallen.